Kevin Bowen here. Don't forget to listen to The Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM, and check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
We are back. I think a day of good news for the Indianapolis Colts. Much needed, that goes without saying. A lot of a liquor cabinet, I think, has been used for Colts Nation here over the past few days. I actually, I don't know if we have it in Twitter questions. Did I include the guy that asked about my Venmo or
yes.
PayPal?
Yep.
Yeah, I think all of us maybe need a little bit of extra money right now for what the past week has been like. But I'm glad that we are coming at you on Wednesday, April 4th, after what I thought was the best offensive practice day that we've seen.
Kevin, I'm going to stop you.
Some time.
You said April 4th.
Oh, my gosh. Jeez. I feel like it's been April Fool's Day, so I don't know. Maybe that's been in my brain. August 4th. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, August 4th, an off day for the Colts coming tomorrow. And about halfway through, a little bit short of halfway through. But Kevin Bowen back in studio. Chris Presley across the way. He was out at Colts camp today. And, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
Some Quenton Nelson stuff, of course.
Right.
Didn't feel like an emergency pod was needed, but we'll address that. And then, you know, I do want to get into camp takeaways as always. If you missed Monday's podcast, that was kind of the heavy Carson Wentz one, the emergency pod. So please check that out. But Chris, what do you think? First, welcome back. Hope Austin treated you well. And what do you think of Grant Park?
Well, one, I couldn't get out of Austin. My flight got canceled numerous times. Almost texted Sam Ellinger to see like if he had some family friends that could house me for a night or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, good to be back. Grant Park continues to impress me. And I know a lot of people, and we'll get into it on Twitter questions, you know, there's a lot of slander with the turf and this, that, and the other. Such a great facility, such a great Colts community for the kids who want to go out there, either if they're off school or taking a day before school. And I'm rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Like seeing the guys again, I have a burst of energy, and it was just so fun to see all the players back out there with the pads, seeing all the media people shaking hands. And a lot of podcast listeners out there, by the way.
Yeah.
And they're going to come to Beers with Bowen. I already talked to them.
Right. Well, I love hearing that there have been a lot of people that have kind of yelled down to me on the practice field. So appreciate for that. And as Chris said, Beers with Bowen officially on the calendar. I mentioned this a little bit a couple pods ago, but September 8th, that is a Wednesday night. Glad I said September, not April there. September 8th is a Wednesday night. Obviously, that leads right into the season opener at Lucas Oil Stadium against Seattle. Shout out to Bullseye Event Group. They are sponsoring Beers with Bowen. That is where this is going to take place. So I know some of you have been there for their incredible tailgates, the Colts VIP tailgates that they do before each game. JMV is going to broadcast there live on Wednesday, and this will be really nice food and drink for everybody that attends, and then they will be giving away one of their grand, I think golden tickets is what they call it, to all of their tailgates throughout the year, which is just a huge package to their Colts VIP tickets. Colts VIP tailgate. So really, really happy and thankful for them for jumping on board with that. And you guys have probably seen their sponsoring some other content, our YouTube videos, some on-air segments as well here during camp. But really looking forward to that. And it's over a month, just barely over a month away. So before you know it, that Seattle game's going to be here.
Yeah, and got off the phone with them just before we recorded. We're also going to give away a pair of tickets to the first home opener.
Let's go
that day. So
let's go. I love that. So hopefully everybody can come out. I'm hoping the time is 6:30. I've been talking a little bit with some people here. I think 6:30 would be good. Just JMV show ends at 6. And then for people that are there for that show and obviously people that work downtown and want to hang on, it'll be a great time. And so come on out. Right by Lucas Oil Stadium is where the Bullseye Event Center is. And we will make sure to not only give away some great prizes, but hopefully give some good Colts insight as well.
With those first tickets that those people are going to win, who's going to be under center?
Oh, boy. You went there.
We got to talk about
Already.
We got to go Carson Wentz, right?
I saw the odds earlier. I believe -130 I thought was Jacob Eason.
Okay.
Did I see that right? Let me actually pull those up before we hit on those. Vegas obviously has odds for everything, and with the Nick Foles stuff and the Philip Rivers stuff, which I do think we'll hit on. Yeah, -130, Mr. Eason. +250, Nick Foles. +350, Philip. How about it? Shout out to Brett Hundley, +650, and Sam Ellinger as well, +650 there. So, gotta love Vegas. But let's start with Wentz. Obviously, again, we talked a lot about it on Monday. Surgery successful. I've never heard of a team saying an unsuccessful surgery, but we should probably note that. A little bit of info on the doctor, because I think he's gotten a whole lot of run here. The 4 o'clock surgeries, I don't know if he plays golf in the morning and just, blocks off 4 o'clock for the Colts, but I don't believe he had to do anything today at 4 o'clock. But David Porter, here locally, Methodist Sports, he, ironically, and I didn't realize this, but was a huge factor in the Colts drafting Bob Sanders back in the mid-2000s.
Okay.
Early 2000s, I guess, 2003, 4, somewhere right around then. But basically, Bob had injury history, which, we know, coming out of Iowa, and a lot of teams red flagged him medically. And David Porter was like, no, you get him here, I'll do the surgery, and you're going to have a player that can play in this league. And clearly, Bob, longevity-wise, no. But when he was healthy, holy shit. I mean,
his impact was
a huge reason why this team won a Super Bowl and was as potent as they were, and menacing probably is the better word to use. Defensively, I believe he also did one of my favorite NBA players a foot surgery on Zydrunas Ilgauskas, one of the great Cavs of all time. I believe LeBron's second best player on one of those Cavs team.
I thought you were going to say Troy Murphy.
Boobie Gibson. I do love Troy. Ryan Bowen loves Troy Murphy more than him. He wrote Red Rum because Troy Murphy did that on his shoes. Back in the day, I don't know what Ryan was competing in athletically that he felt the need. Hopefully not golf. That's quite the intimidating thing to do. That would probably backfire. So yeah, I guess that's just a little bit of, I don't know if people care about that or not, but whatever. Where I'm at with Wentz and the whole debate of 5 weeks, 12 weeks, where's he going to fall in that time frame? What again is worrisome to me is like if you push the 5-6 weeks sort of thing, you're still talking about a guy that has not practiced. 23 11-on-11 reps, all he has taken so far, and like, is he back, Chris, or is he back? We're talking lowercase back or all caps back. Like, that's where I'm at. It's, yes, there's a pain threshold, which I get it, and like players play through pain. But to me, it's not so much of like, dude, you've got, just kind of a sprained ankle. I don't even know if sprained ankle is the right word, but like there are some injuries where it's just purely pain threshold. Can you, and it doesn't show up in your play. This could show up in his play because if he's got an immense amount of pain in that left foot, we all have had different injuries in our lives. Of course, none of us have been in the NFL, but you start to compensate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got a little pain here, so now I'm favoring my right foot a little bit more, and now my drop back might not be as firm with that left plant foot. Like, those are some of the things that I'm obviously curious about and would concern me about rushing that time frame on the 5-weeker. I think that something, at least a question I've gotten a whole lot, is how did the Colts not realize this and they trade physical? Now, I think for our local audience, we're certainly plugged into what happened with Karis LeVert and being traded from the Brooklyn Nets to where Karis LeVert has a Brooklyn Net, entrance physical to start the year last year for Brooklyn. They don't discover a mass in his kidney. I think it was kidney. Mass in his kidney, and then all of a sudden he gets traded here to the Pacers, and they discover it, and he has to get that removed. Now, who knows? Maybe the mass grew more in those kind of 2 or 3 months in there. I asked Frank Reich the question earlier today, just how much did Carson's injury history, was that debated between you and Chris Ballard in that trade process? Thought that, and Frank, while admitting he's biased, basically said that it wasn't too concerning. You look at the games missed for Carson Wentz, not a massive number, like 12 games in 5 years. I mean, it's a number. Now, obviously, when you tear your ACL in December versus September, that's going to skew it a little bit. But I do think we should note, we're talking about a guy that since his days at North Dakota State has had 6 or 7 multi-game injuries that have taken him off the field. We're talking a wrist, We're talking broken ribs. I believe we're talking some back issues as well, a torn ACL. Frank used the term dinged up today. I'm like, oh, boy, I don't know if I'm calling that dinged up.
Yeah.
Obviously, the concussion in the playoff game, that took him out early in that game, and then now here you have this foot. And basically, when NFL teams make trades for players, it's not necessarily like you do a full-body MRI. That's just not typically how things go. I think that's kind of a league-wide thing. My thought is this. If I'm trading for a franchise quarterback and I'm giving up that draft capital and I'm paying him that amount of money and he has that injury history, I'm doing more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing more than I do for, and I can say this because, he is one of my good friends. I should probably say friends. I don't know if we're great friends anymore. But a guy like Jack Doyle, when he gets claimed, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, hey, all right, Jack, okay, good. Is the temperature okay?
Right.
Height and weight. And that's just the reality of a guy on the back end of the roster versus a guy that you're giving up these massive resources for. And, when you're drafting a guy like Bob Sanders and he's a second-round pick, you want to make sure that you're all in on that. Whereas, a guy in the 7th round, you might be more willing to take a risk. Now, obviously, could they have discovered this particular foot? It's not like Carson had foot issues. But for me, knowing how much footwork means for that position, especially a guy that struggled last season, you got to rebuild fundamentals. We know he likes to make plays on the perimeter, all that stuff. I don't know. Hindsight, of course, is super 2020, but I probably would have looked into that a little bit more there. So, I'm not ripping the Colts for not having the proper backup. I've said I'd roll with Jacob Eason, and I'll kind of give some reasons why throughout this podcast. But, those are my thoughts, kind of Wentz related. And, of course, we won't know for another couple of weeks. Just where he's at rehab-wise and going from there.
Yeah, that 5-12, which we'll get to later in Twitter questions, it's a lot of up in the air right now. And let's talk about the man, the myth, and the legend from Notre Dame, Quenton Nelson, on the left side, who was supposed to protect Carson Wentz this season. And his tweet today, hey, no pity, but he's apparently going through the same injury, and it is just super ironic that this is happening to your starting quarterback and the guard who's probably going to get paid, you would think, the most money in NFL history.
I was talking to a Colts employee today, and they literally showed me a picture of this person saging the fields at Grand Park yesterday.
Kyrie Irving just...
I shit you not. I mean, literally showed me a picture of and they were saying the sprinklers were coming on, and they felt like I was baptizing it even more. I'm like, holy shit. I mean, I don't know, Frank Reich, pretty religious. Carson, I don't know. Maybe they would appreciate that. But yeah, this is where we're at. When I see the Nelson injury, this injury kind of adds to why I'm saying I'd probably throw Eason in there. And I know this is a mindset that when you're a coach, you got to sit there and be like, hey, 1-game seasons, here we go, let's go, all in, blah, blah, blah. I certainly come at it from a much different view. And I also think a reason why I'd side with Eason, when you look at this gauntlet, it's what really stings about the Nelson injury, what really stings about this Wentz injury is not only what you have in those first 5 games, you also got Tennessee right there, week 3, your first road game of the year. Then you see them again at the end of October. Now, I think we expect both Carson and Quenton to be back. That would be the end of the time frame, 5 to 12 weeks. But man, that's something that kind of adds to it. I mean, there's been years where you haven't played Houston until December. You didn't get that luck with your schedule. I know Quenton mentioned it in the Instagram post, and we've talked about it on the podcast before. He had a couple of off-season procedures back. I'm trying to think of when I first heard about that. I'm going to guess April, May-ish is kind of when I first heard about that. Okay. So I don't think these were recently. But I guess my question again is just, did those off-season surgeries impact this injury now flaring up? Mm-hmm. Because you look at Nelson, the dude's played 3,700 snaps in the NFL, 3,600 snaps in the NFL. I mean, holy shit, Carson Wentz has played, 4,000 or 5,000. I have no idea how many snaps he's played. But how in the world do these happen on back-to-back days? And I'm speaking for everybody in Colts Nation. And, even for me, I just walked to my car last night thinking, what in the what? Gosh, do I need to wear, boots to practice today? I'm gosh, a little bit nervous here. So, I asked Frank, I guess it would have been a couple days ago now, about the aggravation. Like, if you rush these guys back, what about aggravating? He made it very clear that that's not part of it. They really feel good about that. So I think that's a bit of positive news as well. Good. Speed guys, I think it takes them a little bit longer. Now, obviously, and I feel this way about the Pacers last year when Miles Turner dealt with the foot issues. Big men and foot, it's just...
That's what I was going to ask you. With Nelson being a bigger guy, does it linger a little longer?
Right. I mean, do you hire Rex Ryan to help you massage, the feet of these two guys? I mean, I think that's a fair question. Could be a question for Frank here in the coming days. But Chris Reed, who I feel like he used to play basketball around Central Indiana, but he is the left guard right now. Now, he started 14 games for the Panthers last year. Started, I think he's been in the league 5 years. Started every season, some capacity, not really full-time starter. But, that's a resume. And we'll see. Obviously, Aaron Donald week 2, Jeffrey Simmons week 3.
Yeah.
Not ideal. Now, when I hear pain threshold, I think to myself, oh, boy, I think Big Q will be ready to go. And I guess lastly, Chris, unless you have anything to add on this before we get to camp takeaways, look at 5 weeks. And again, look at your schedule. So August 3rd was when Nelson had surgery. 5 weeks would be September 7th. That is a Tuesday, the day before Beers with Bowen. That leaves 3 practices, 8th, 9th, and 10th for Quenton Nelson before the Seahawks. Now, I tend to think Quenton Nelson could play with 3 practices, whereas Carson Wentz, I'd be a little bit iffier on, if that's such a word. But I just think those are things to keep in mind of just when are these guys starting to put weight? When are these guys able to do anything on the field practice-wise? Again, we won't get answers on that stuff for a couple weeks now, but I think those are all fair things to be curious about.
And for the optimistic Colts fans, let's remember, if you go back to previous Beers with Bowen or previous Kevin's Corner podcast, we talked about the timetable between the last preseason game and the first regular season game, wondering if they were going to be rusty. Now you at least have a little bit more buffer time to get these guys back. So
Fair. And, Frank Reich, ever the optimist, said, I'd rather this happen on, July 31st, August 1st, whatever, than, you get midway through the season, things like that. I'm like, man, if they would have done more, and this is an NFL-wide issue, if they would have done more stuff in the spring, do we see this in the spring? Those are all just, again, crazy fluke stuff. Here we are, man. It's been a wild week, to say the least.
Well, so far this week at camp, after Carson Wentz went down yesterday, not so great offensively. Today, a lot better. So far, what are your camp takeaways?
Yeah, let's start with the 2 QBs that have gotten the most snaps. Let's start with Jacob Eason. I think people are ripping him like no other, and I frankly don't think it's been as catastrophic as people are making it seem. Look, it hasn't been great. I'm not going to act like this is a dude that should be a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. But, what did people expect? He's literally practicing multiple days without 3/5 of his offensive line. T.Y. and Jack Doyle have already taken separate rest days twice, and we're only 7 practices into it. So, to me, I thought there'd be ups and downs, and there have been certainly ups and downs. I thought today was important for him to bounce back from yesterday. Scott Milanovich, I talked with him, and there's an article up on our website. I encourage listeners to go check that out. Some great quotes from the QB coach. I thought very candid on each of these quarterbacks, Wentz, Eason, and Ellinger. But basically, a key evaluation part right now for Eason is how do you bounce back? And I think when you look at him, they don't feel like he's wide-eyed. They don't feel like it's, oh, boy, what in the world is this? I mean, the dude did start as a true freshman at Georgia, started for his hometown team. I mean, those are some big things that you do for a collegiate quarterback. They really like that he's not making the same mistake twice, which I think is important as well. Now, what do I want to see more? His decision-making and the decisiveness with that decision-making, it's lacking. And I think that is something that has to improve. What worries me as well is he's still wearing a red jersey. So what is that like? Yes, your O-line is getting their ass kicked more often than not by the D-line. Frankly, that's just personnel, in my opinion. But obviously, when what gets real, how does he handle that? Because I always felt like at Washington, that when we did that film breakdown last year, that was always kind of my big concern. If things are clean, this is where I try to insert some rhyme about Jacob Eason being mean. But have you ever heard the Mother's Day poem that I did for my mother for Mother's Day back in the day?
No.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I like the way you clean, and you are not mean. Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
All that rhymed.
I mean, how great is that? I thought it was the best Mother's Day present of all time. So to be fair, I think I was like third grade, not like last year. But yeah. What else? Today I felt like empty set stuff. He recognized blitz. He got the ball out, made a couple big plays down the field. You got to utilize his arm. Like, he's got to be aggressive. And I don't think he's been gun shy. I don't necessarily notice that.
Yeah, so I was going to ask. Today was my first day out there.
Right.
And you go to way more. I mean, I go maybe 1 to 2 practices a year.
Yeah.
Today there was a lot of check down stuff. Do they do that? Like, is there a certain day where it's today we're going to do a lot more underneath routes, a lot of check down?
I honestly, I just think that was no. I don't think it's like, hey, we're working on checking the ball down. Obviously, the defense has a focus. The offense has a focus. I think Jacob realized where blitzes were, got rid of the ball pretty quickly, and I think when you're an empty set, obviously no one is with you.
Right.
You got to get the ball out a little bit quicker. I still thought he had a couple things vertically. Obviously, especially last year with Rivers. I mean, I couldn't remember any deep balls during training camp. So now that's just part of maybe him as a QB. Something to note as well, today was the first day the Colts have repeated installs with Eason. So by that, it's the first 5 or 6 days of camp, throw the whole playbook in there. Mm-hmm. Everything is in there. And you got to think about it like this. When you get into a game week, Jacob Eason comes to Frank Reich and says, these are the plays I like. And Frank Reich says, okay, we'll formulate a game plan out of that. Right now, it's throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks. Again, this is Eason's first time with these starters here. So, I'm not going to make any sort of grand statements on Jacob Eason until I see the Panthers come in here, until I see Lucas Oil with the Panthers. I mean, Frank Reich said it yesterday to Pat McAfee. Like, Eason will probably play a half.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount in that first preseason game. And you know what I say? Let's go. I love it. I'd say, hey, why not 2 halves? No, I mean, I get it. You got to throw other guys in there. But, yeah, I think that is kind of where we're at right now with Eason. Ellinger, boy, these last 2 days have been really good. Really good. I just feel like the more NFL practices I watch, this is my 11th training camp, the more I feel like I can feel, and this is going to sound like I'm saging my house or something, I can feel guys' presence.
The presence, yeah.
I can feel it with Ellinger.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds weird, but I don't know. There's something about them that you're just kind of like, hey, I wouldn't mind following that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Love the poise, love the command. I probably took that for granted in evaluating him a little bit more. Now, the arm won't wow you, and it's not perfect with him, but the last 2 days have been strong. And Frank had a really good quote. Today's notebook, the Wednesday notebook up on the website, Frank Reich, which I always appreciate this, Frank is so candid and just does a great job describing what he likes in his offensive players, what he doesn't like, things like that, what they need to work on. With Ellinger, he finds the simple play early. That's so critical for a quarterback. There is actually, let me see if I can find this. Okay, yeah. This right quote about kind of the strengths of Eason versus Ellinger. So he starts off with Ellinger. He's just very good at it. How do I simplify this to make the play that I know I can make? He has a good knack of that. Jacob, on the other hand, we want him to do that same thing, but Jacob has that upside. When you have that kind of arm talent, there are certain things that you can do with that kind of arm talent that money can't buy. But you have to be able to execute good enough, consistent enough, to give yourself the opportunity for those big plays to show down the field. I mean, you'd love to marry the two. That's
yeah, right.
That's I think is what you hear with that for sure. But I like what I've seen with Ellinger. Now, again, it should be noted that he's working with the second unit and hasn't taken any first-team reps, and you obviously want to see more. And I kind of expected, now again, looking back on this, I probably expected things to be relatively smooth for Ellinger because he did play so much in college.
Right.
His gift is very strong mental capacity, all of that. Obviously, Eason, those aren't really his strengths. So, basically, if you go out there to Grand Park, especially yesterday, you would have said, what in the world is Eason doing, largely? And you would have said, why isn't Sam Ehlinger getting more snaps? But, like, if you're going to get the whole potential meter, the meter's higher for Eason than it is for Ehlinger. So, yeah, I know on Monday's podcast I quickly wrote off Sam Ehlinger as the Week 1 starter. I'd be very surprised if that happened. But since that day, he's had a couple of really nice practices in there.
Yeah.
So,
I was impressed with his pocket mobility today.
Yeah, he can move. I mean, he's not 4'4", but, like, you see how he was an effective runner. I think he senses things really well. I do want to mention it's very hard to evaluate properly right now. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've said this before on a podcast. Like, what Kwity Paye does to Sam Tevi is, I mean, you're waiting for the Westfield police to show up and have a word with Mr. Paye. But I go back to the start of yesterday's practice, and Chris, as I said earlier, 11 years of watching NFL training camps. The Colts starting offense begins practice with fumbled exchange, fumbled exchange, fumbled exchange. The first 3 plays. I mean, it's the worst 3-play stretch, I think, in the history of NFL training camps, but I haven't seen them all. It's the worst 3-play stretch. This is a starting offense.
Right.
And, like, Joey Hunt and Jacob Eason, those guys work together. It's not like Joey Hunt just came off the street. And I'm like, and I sense, like, coaches were, like, afraid to say anything. They're just in utter shock. And I'm, like, rubbing my eyes like, wow, did I just see that right? Like, I don't think I did. I'm, like, looking around being like, did you? And, like, how do you even evaluate Eason at that standpoint? Like, and who knows who the muffed exchanges are. Like, how do you evaluate Jonathan Taylor, with that happening? That is what makes it difficult, is, like, the D-line consistently is really, I think, having their way with the offensive line. Now, full pads have only been on for 2 days, but, like, what does that mean? That's, I think, where it's just difficult right now. I've liked what Paye has shown. Kamoko Toure, Ben Banogu. The D-line's also been by far the healthiest unit throughout camp. Bobby Okereke, I think, has had some really good moments getting his hand on balls and stuff like that.
How's Rock been?
I thought Rock had a good start to camp. Not as much, but I think not as much, like, good or bad lately. Just kind of haven't really noticed him, which is fine. Obviously, we'll see when Xavier Rhodes gets back. And I know the defense without Rhodes, I think Darius Leonard's pretty close.
I think he is too.
But we'll see about that. And I guess just kind of my last camp takeaway, because I think we'll get to some of these in the questions. And obviously, if you've got anything, Chris, feel free to chime in. But, Jonathan Taylor's a stud. And I get it. It's full pads. You're not being tackled to the ground.
He is a total stud.
And I thought Kari Willis.
He ran one of the first plays of the offensive set today. Ran to the left side, which right now is the banged up side.
Right.
Still, it was like a 23-yard run. And was going to plow over the safety.
Right. And I think 2 things. First, a couple big runs of the starting offense. Some kudos to Jacob Eason. I don't know if he's flat out making those run checks, but he clearly saw favorable numbers, and that's a big part of what the Colts do offensively. Secondly, Kari Willis made a great point today. When you're a defender, he weighs 230, and that's what you're thinking about, but you forget how quick he is in just those shorter areas. So if you sell out thinking, oh, boy, I really got to come up here with a form tackle, he can make you look silly.
Yeah.
So Taylor, like we've talked about, you guys have heard me gush about him all offseason long. Did we have a Mike Strawn question, Chris? I kind of forget. Or should we talk about him here?
We don't, but I like the way he popped on the field today.
Yeah.
Just he was noticeably different than the other receivers out there. Just not taking anything away from Pittman and Hilton and Pascal or anything like that. But when you sit there and you look at number 17 and he's towering above everyone, he can make cuts, and he can run the long route. Yeah. And it's just different.
The size will obviously jump out to everybody that comes up to Grand Park and sees him, and that's evident. I should describe this better, but I kind of like how he carries himself, and I kind of like how he goes about his business. I like how he catches the football. It doesn't look like he's trying really hard to catch the football. And we know the Colts have wanted this. They've wanted a big body. And, Pittman is a bit like that, but Pittman, that'd be selling him short. I mean, he's a well-rounded guy. Can do a whole lot, laterally, certainly after the catch, things like that. It's kind of like, okay, is this what Devin Funchess was hoping to be? And right now, if I'm making 53, I'd have Desmond Patman off, and I'd have Mike Strawn on. Now, I know Patman, very recency bias. He had a couple drops today with Ellinger in that second unit. But I've noticed Strawn a lot more. Maybe not a ton in 11 on 11, but certainly in the one-on-ones, I've noticed some good stuff from him. I thought, 5-6 wide out, who wins those roles? They got to play special teams, Maybe not. Patman's a guy that certainly didn't play special teams last year, and you had him active you had him on your 53 for the entire year. So I encourage everybody to please continue to read our notebooks up on the website. Each day, 15. Hell, today I felt like I had about 20. Just little tidbits from practice and a lot more on kind of who's standing out and things like that.
Yeah, and I know last thing, I know Mo wasn't in there today, but Kylan Granson.
Yeah.
Pretty good looking rookie tight end.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think you kind of throw a little dump pass to him, and he moves a little bit differently than those other guys. So obviously Jack and Mo both are important for this football team, 3 down wise, but Kylan Granson is going to play a role without a doubt.
All right, so a lot of talk about with Wentz, Nelson, and obviously the Colts camp takeaways so far as we are entering into the preseason, but let's jump to Twitter questions. First with gliding cycle. When I simply think of the dollars and the cents of this, why wouldn't Phillip Rivers do something like coming back to the Colts? Let's say it's $1 million a week to start. He can help out the group that he likes, and he's not looking for anything long-term when Carson Wentz is ready and get back to business. Do you think I'm crazy for thinking this?
Yeah, a little bit. First, I think we need to make sure that we are, reading what Phillip Rivers said. I don't know how many people actually read Sam Farmer's article in the LA Times. He's coaching football right now, and he made it clear that December or January is what he keeps on saying about this. So, to me, let's say you lose in the first round of the playoffs, and I don't know, I just don't think Phillip Rivers' team is going to be losing the first round of the playoffs. Not that I know anything about Alabama football, high school football, but so that's November at the earliest. I mean, he gave it no indication that he wants to play right now. I mean, he said it. He was like, trust me, I wouldn't have made weight if they asked me to play. So if Phillip Rivers isn't making weight, can he even move in the whole pocket? So,
well, could he ever move?
Well, fair. Yeah. You know what I mean. And I know Gliding Cycle points out the money. It's not about money for Phillip Rivers. Sure, he's got 7,000 kids, but what this dude wants, and I know this is not what he wants, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Josh Allen, tear your ACL in mid-November, boom. Insert your quarterback here. I don't know, Tom Brady, tear your, I don't know, crazy stuff. That is what he's thinking. Super Bowl. That's what he's thinking. I also and I know this isn't necessarily the right thing to say or do, but I just think the Colts need to make a commitment. Commitment according, you got 5 different guys that have started for you since 2016, or hasn't been consecutive years with the same starting quarterback since Luck did it
right
in 2015, 2016. Yeah, you just need some definitive nature. And obviously, if Rivers comes back, Rivers is not coming back to be 4 starts and then I'm good. That ain't him. So, which I understand. I get it. Phillip Rivers is going to have demands as well. So, sorry.
Yeah, we're going to get to that with a question from Jason. Phillip Rivers said obviously he'd be open to coming back this season. If the Colts don't bring him back, it proves you right about how it went down. If Carson Wentz is out more than a couple of weeks, would you want Rivers until then or see what Eason has in store?
Jason references this. Going back to what I was hearing on the Rivers and the whole retirement. Again, people from the Colts vehemently are adamant that Rivers didn't want to keep on playing football. Mm-hmm. Some people close to the Rivers camp said that no, he wanted to keep on playing, or was certainly open to that idea. So again, I heard both sides of it back then. I think where you're at here is, and I'll just read this Rivers quote. I want to make sure I'm very clear. I'm not predicting I will play in December or January for that matter. 1, you've got to have somebody who wants you, and 2, it's got to be right. Rivers not just this dude is not on social media nonstop. He's not, looking for a headline. I mean, when he says that, I want to make sure I'm very clear. That should tell people something.
Yeah.
If you are super I'll say this to Jason. If you are super committed all in on 2021, like if you are Jim Irsay and you're Chris Ballard and you're Frank Reich and you say, guys, I don't care about 2022 and beyond. We are all in. You would have traded for a quarterback right now. Like, you would have made some move and given up a valuable draft pick resource and saying, all right, Gardner Minshew, all right, Nick Foles, all right, Marcus Mariota, let's go. And giving them a full month to learn their personnel, even if, Carson, whatever, isn't going to be out for that long. Because you do have that such an important game in Week 3 against the Titans. Look, I'm still Eason. I know that's not full-on 2021 commitment. I want to see these next couple weeks play out.
That's fair. All right. I love this one from Salisbury. KB.
Sean Salisbury?
Yeah, maybe. You never know who listens to this podcast.
I was going to say, you never know. He comes on our airwaves.
How much do you blame moving the camp from hard-nosed, blue-collar city like Anderson to a frou-frou wine and cheese town like Westfield for these injuries? I think it's changed our mindset, and now it's okay not to show up for work when you're hurt.
Oh, boy. Did we get a frou-frou?
A frou-frou. I grew up next to, apparently, frou-frou Westfield.
We've had a lot of podcasts. We're approaching 300. I don't know if we've ever uttered the phrase frou-frou.
I've never read it.
No, I don't know. We are in Roundaboutville. I mean, we are. It's Hamilton County. I grew up in Hamilton County, so I can certainly say it. Yeah, well, they're saging the field, Salisbury. I don't know if that helps you out. For what it's worth, the fields look pristine to me. I'd love to hit a few iron shots off those fields. I got to tell you this, Chris, because I love hearing fans yell during practice. Wentz had an overthrow, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, one of those 2 days that you practice. And the fan literally yells down in dead seriousness, or I think he may be yelling to his buddy, like, hey, it's okay, man. Michael Jordan didn't win every game. I'm like, what? I mean, what are we doing here? Are we justifying an overthrow by Carson Wentz in a 7-on-7 like it's, the difference between a Super Bowl or not? Like, God, it's just
every play is a Super Bowl.
Every play, man. Every darn play. Shout out to Anderson. I miss it. Shout out to Rose Holman. Wasn't out there much. Was out there a little bit there. So, and shout out to Grant Park. Beautiful.
When you would do those, would you travel every day or would you stay up there?
Anderson stayed in the dorms, Smith Hall.
Nice.
Yeah. Stayed in the dorms. I want to say it was the second floor. They get coaches, first floor, other important staff people kind of in the basement, and Pleasantville was second floor. Yeah. Not a whole lot to do in Anderson.
It's from Angel. What do you think is more intriguing to Andrew Luck? What do you think is more intriguing to bring Andrew Luck out of retirement? A hefty GoFundMe or a nationally recognized book club? I'll get started on whichever you pick.
Well, definitely the recognized book club. I mean, you got to have a big, maybe like an architecture podcast.
Yeah. Subscription.
I don't know. Can you discover anything that, does Frank Lloyd Wright have any offspring that can start a podcast that don't know many architects besides Frankie. So I don't know where you could go there. I don't know, Chris. We're in their building right now. Indy 11 ownership.
That building's nice.
Throwing out some ideas. Yeah, building is nice. Yeah, Angel. I did see he had some quotes in Zach Kiefer's article on Peyton Manning. So far, his public events since he retired was congratulating Jacoby Brissett on being Man of the Year. I think that was.
Mm-hmm.
And now congratulating Peyton Manning on going into the Hall of Fame. So if those are his only 2 public appearances, oh, boy, yeah, I don't know when we're going to hear from that man.
All right, here's the question you talked about earlier, Kevin, from Mike. Do you have a Venmo or a PayPal? Because seriously, I want to pay you for the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah, I do have a Venmo, Mike. If you can find it, please send me money. No, in all seriousness, it's been wild. And I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day, like, do you like this? And it's great for clicks, but what ultimately sells for 6 months is a good football team.
Yeah.
A really good football team.
Right.
So that's what ultimately sells. So and I just hate the freakish stuff, that just sucks.
Right.
So thank you, Mike. Let's all throw one back or two. I might have a drink, tonight. Is tomorrow an off day? Yeah, tonight. Certainly.
From Preston, of the players who might be on the cusp of making the roster, such as Jordan Wilkins, Ben Banigou, etc., or maybe even Marlon Mack, who do you think will be likely to be most traded? Where do you think they might be traded to? And who do you think the Colts get back from each team for said player? Cheers, and thanks for keeping everyone in the know.
Well, thanks, Preston. I hate to be a Debbie Downer on this question, but the whole player for draft pick trade idea, I think, is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about the NFL. It's just, you don't see it a whole. I mean, Jordan Wilkins, he's your 4th-string running back. Like Ben Banigou, I think he's going to play. He's been good in camp, but I'm still not saying he's 100% locked to make the team. So I just don't know what you get. I mean, Marlon Mack, maybe 4th, 5th rounder. That when I say that out loud, that seems super high, even for a guy coming off a torn Achilles. But you just rarely see this. And I know Philip Dorsett for Jacoby Brissett happened, but yeah, Preston, I just don't. I guess the Colts, didn't they trade some dude to Miami for like a 7th-round pick? Maybe, but anything higher than like a 6th or 7th, be stunned.
Yeah.
Stunned.
It's more of a basketball thing.
Yeah, it really is, which is weird. It's weird to me, but yeah.
Next question comes from Andrew. So do you think the Colts will trade for Nick Foles in a couple weeks? Foles is essentially a 3rd-string quarterback for the Bears, and I'm assuming they won't part with Andy Dalton, who they just signed him in the offseason. I know you're big on Jacob Eason starting, but I'm worried about wasting his season. If Carson Wentz misses the start of the season, Foles could come in, win 1, maybe 2 games. Foles isn't spectacular by any means, but at least I know what we get with him. What are your thoughts there?
Let's just, for argument's sake, kind of cut it in the middle and say he misses 8 to 9 weeks. That would be, 4-ish games?
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying 0-4 with Eason? Are you saying 2-2 with Foles? I don't know. I feel like, is Nick Foles good?
He's good at giving that pep talk. Did you see that press conference?
Boy, that was
Holy
passionate.
cow.
That was passionate.
He was basically like, get me off of this team because I know I'm not going to play.
Yeah, and I don't know. I get it. Him and Frank Reich had great success together, but if he's bad and the record is the same for a small sample size, like, it's just an awful waste. It's just such a waste. And then you have to acknowledge the whole elephant in the room about Carson. And you guys have heard me say this. If Carson Wentz is worried about Nick Foles, he shouldn't be my franchise quarterback. Like, that is my opinion, but that's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is Carson Wentz is there. So,
yes.
And he's not going anywhere. So, like, you have to address that. And, boy, that's tough. And that might sound soft, but, again, it's the reality of where you're at right now. I look at it and think to myself, again, these first 5 games, what were you going to go with Wentz? What were you going to go with Foles? What if the Bears are saying, hey, we're hanging on to him until the last day of preseason cuts, and Andy Dalton gets hurt in the 3rd preseason game?
Mm-hmm.
There goes that idea. So, you're watching New England, you're watching Denver. I kind of like the Minshew idea if you do go this route. I'm not a fan of going that route. If you do, I kind of like Minshew, younger, knows the division, just, things like that.
What a quarterback room Minshew and Carson Wentz would be.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I don't like it, man. I know. I'm probably wrong, but I just don't like it. I like potential. And I know that sometimes you probably do just have to try and hit a single, but I don't even know if you're hitting a single there.
Yeah.
I don't. How many times, and we saw this in 2017, I mean, Jacoby comes in 10 days before the start of the season. He didn't even start. And, there was obviously ups and downs with Jacoby when he got in there. Now, Foles got more experience and in this offense, but I just don't think it's a slam dunk.
From Colts Maniac, this situation with Wentz sucks. Yes, it does. But I think this is a good chance for Jacob Eason to show out and let us know what he has. Do you think this is the Colts' thought process, or will they try to find a win now option? Not a lot of options out there. Thanks. Let me know. Enjoy the pod.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. Wait and see for the next couple weeks. 2 things. How does Carson Wentz rehab go? And we won't know this answer till the 20s of August, maybe even later. And how does Jacob Eason do? I mean, that preseason opener against Carolina, boy, this is going to sound super hyperbole. I can't tell you the last time the Colts have had a quarterback with more on the line in a preseason game. And, like, this is how Jacob Eason's got to go to bed at night. At least this is how I would go to bed. Oh, my God. If I take advantage of this and Carson Wentz misses a month and I look good.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And then also, if I shit the bed and it doesn't go well and they say whatever, they trade for Minshew, Wentz comes back, now Eason's back at the third stringer, Sam Ehlinger is super smart, and they say Ehlinger, this could be it for Eason, which, again, these are too far into the spectrum, but, like, that would have to be some of my thought process. And, I mean, how do you not? You're a human being. How do you not think about it?
And you're a quarterback where you get life-changing money if you do show out.
Life-changing money, and oftentimes not life. You're not a cat. You don't have 9 lives. Some of them do, but not a lot of them do. Does a cat have 9 lives? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. So that's, I think, where we're at right now. Let these couple weeks play out. How does Eason develop? And I do think Frank is a big believer in, like, hey, I'll get a game plan ready. Believe in me. And if he's going to be on the short end of that, go from there.
So, Kevin, does Jacob Eason's more reps on the field potentially raise his trade stock if we want to go after a slightly more proven vet for Murderer's Row, as you were rattling off at the end of last week? Would you endorse that strategy, or does that make us look silly for letting Jacoby walk? That's from Josh.
Okay, give that to me again. Trade value for Eason?
Yep.
Oh, boy, that seems minimal. Again, that kind of goes back to my player pick thing. Jacoby walk, he wanted to leave too. This is like Anthony Walker. There's a better opportunity to play and start in Miami. So I just don't think that's a fair statement.
Next one comes from Jason. Giving these two options, which is more important to the Colts ownership/management? A, making the playoffs as a 7th seed and going against Kansas City on the road, or B, preserving a first-round pick and sending a second-rounder to Philadelphia instead?
Boy, that's a good question. I guess my first thought is, if the Colts are the 7th seed, they're playing KC on the road. That means who's the 1? Because the 1 seed's getting the bye. We going Buffalo?
Buffalo, probably.
Going Buffalo there. Kansas City as the 2 seed. It's Jason. It's making the playoffs,
right?
Organizationally,
you have to,
without a doubt. But this is the other kind of element to all of this. Certainly, is the whole 75% and whatnot there. But yeah, that is funny.
So Benji read your article for your 4 options. Said good work, by the way.
Thank you.
As usual, and you can check those out on 1075thefan.com. But what about Sam Ehlinger? Like you, I'd rather give Jacob Eason a shot, but if he's a disaster, maybe try Ehlinger in a Tim Tebow-style offense. It would be dreadful to watch, but it might snag a win or 2 before Wentz returns. I'd rather that than give up draft capital for a short-term fix.
Yeah, they're not totally changing the offense just for that. Sure, you might have a few plays and packages in there for Ehlinger in that role. And look, flat out, no matter who your quarterback is to start the year, it's a heavy dose of 28, a heavier dose of 28, and the heaviest dose of 28. And then your defense certainly has got to step up big time as well.
The powers that be ask, it's 5 to 12 weeks. Is 5 to 12 weeks including the rehab time, or will rehab be a separate time? I'm confused on that.
Yeah, 5 to 12 weeks from surgery. Now, like I was saying earlier, what about the practice time? What about the ramp-up periods? Can he practice at all in late August? Like I was saying on Monday, 23 passes for Carson Wentz so far. Is 23 passes enough? Plus your 3 practices? Because once you get to the regular season, you're game planning in practice. Your rehab guys, they do stuff all on their own. That, I think, is part of this that, we're going to have to wait and see on.
This one comes from Patrick. Hey, Kevin, I feel like I'm in the majority of thinking that the Colts put themselves behind the 8 ball by not letting rookie quarterback Jacob Eason last year get more reps in practice, and then letting Jacoby Brissett run the scout team, and then going out and getting, dare I say, an injury-prone quarterback like Carson Wentz. Am I overthinking, or should this have been seen in the distance by the Colts?
Yeah, I thought, I would have given Eason a little bit more run, honestly, last year during camp. I thought he split way too many third-team reps. And I was just, I'm kind of like, you hate to say it, but every time Jalen Morton gets reps in practice, I'm kind of like, well, what are we doing here? And trust me, last year I acknowledged the pandemic and limited reps, and Phillip needed them, and Jacoby needs some, of course, as that top backup. But I would have given Eason a little bit more. And like I said, the injury-prone Wentz thing, boy, that's just such an important investment for your franchise. Again, I know hindsight looks really, really clear, but I would have done a little bit more research on that.
Kevin, John wants to know why everyone is higher on Eason than Ehlinger when Ehlinger has played more games and started in the last few seasons.
Well, John, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's just that potential meter is higher. And to be fair to Eason, a lot of him not playing was a little bit out of his control. I mean, he transferred. He got hurt at Georgia. I mean, I guess I can't recall when he's been beat out. I don't know, maybe Jake Fromm, quote-unquote, beat him out, but I think his injury
kind of because of the injury,
played into that. And I think there is more of an NFL style to Eason, of course. Now, obviously, Ehlinger can do some things with his legs, which I've mentioned. I also think Eason has done a little bit more with his legs than I thought he could do. He's not Philip Rivers at all in terms of stature there. But, John, I think go back to that Frank Reich quote. I think that quote was really, really good about what Eason needs to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Like short-term versus long-term, okay, maybe a little bit of an argument there. But, at the same time, it's not like Sam Ehlinger won 3 Heismans at Texas. Certainly, he started for 4 years at Texas. That's impressive, but, Texas football ain't what it used to be either. So, hope we don't have any Hook'em fans that are listening to this because, boy, we just lost them.
Yeah, I saw a thing yesterday on Twitter where they were questioning Texas about how much money they bring in like Congress, like the Texas Congress.
Oh, those were unbelievable.
She said, "You're 3-7 against the Horned Frogs of TCU." So
one of the funniest comments I've literally ever heard. That was awesome.
All right, we're going to kind of stay there from John's question with a question from Colton. Who do you think has more upside between Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger? Because he knows that Eason has bigger arm talent. Ehlinger has way more of a mobile and upside with his legs.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Eason. Eason, Ehlinger, we know. We know there's a pretty defined ceiling there. It's fine. Eason, you really haven't. I mean, we talked about it. Played the second few snaps of the quarterback that was drafted back in 2020, I guess he was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly part of it.
Jordan wants to know if Ehlinger has had any work with the ones. He hasn't seen much posted on him yet.
Nope, none. Yeah, and I didn't think it was possible. There's been times where Morton has honestly gotten a few reps over him, and then now you're involving Hundley a little bit more. I asked Scott Milanovich that last week. I still think we're a little bit away from Sam Ehlinger one talk. I really think it's big time to evaluate Eason in those reps.
Right. All right, KJ wants to know, what is the Venn diagram of people saying Eason should have a chance to start and those losing their shit now that Carson Wentz is hurt?
Chris, I'll kind of throw this to you. I would probably say 20 to 30% of fans want him to start. I don't know. Maybe that's low. I feel like I'm the only media person that's content with him starting.
I'm fine with him start. No, I'm good with it.
So would you say fans are more 50-50? Would you say fans are...
From what I've seen, a lot of fans are, let him go.
Yeah.
Let him play. This is who he drafted.
Maybe it is.
Let's go with it.
I think it's what do you want as a fan? What do you want as an organization? Those are two, I think, big questions that you have to decide. And that really, I think, plays into your answer.
This next one comes from Mitchell. I know it's a long shot, but since he knows this offense and played last year, would it be crazy if the Colts brought back Philip Rivers for a couple of games if needed, if Carson Wentz's injury is serious? I know Philip Rivers doesn't have the mobility like Carson Wentz does, but since this is a run-heavy offense, at least Philip could get you through a couple weeks. Remember, you thought the Colts were going to re-sign Rivers. Thanks, KB.
Ballard likes, again, Rivers isn't coming back for a couple games. It's not. And like cap space wise, do you even have the cap space? I feel like we kind of addressed that one already.
From Daniel, hi, Kevin. Aside from the injury, what would you have happen, or what would have to happen to Eddie Pinheiro to win the kicking job off of Hot Rod? Thanks, and keep up the great work. You have a big fan here in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow. Let's go, Daniel. Thank
Down
you for
under.
that. Yeah, down under. Daniel, I don't know if you watched any of the Olympics in golf, but Cameron Smith's mullet was absolutely incredible there. So almost snuck his way into that bronze medal action there. Okay, kicking-wise, 7 kicks. We saw 4 of them today, and both kickers are a perfect 7 for 7. So I'm surprised we haven't seen more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned before, I think Eddie Pinheiro's got to, really, really supplant Hot Rod, in the Colts' eyes. And again, my very untrained kicking eye, it'll look like just a little bit more pop height out of Hot Rod versus Eddie.
Okay.
Similar, but again, and maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit there, but that's just what I observed.
So I left before that. How does the kicking segment work?
They actually did that super early. I don't know, maybe if
maybe I just wasn't out there yet.
Today was really early in camp. They just go 11 on 11. Obviously, it's not full speed. But Rhodes to Sanchez to Hot Rod, and he goes from 33. Today, I think it was 33. These are rough yardages.
Right.
33, obviously, extra point. 42, 47, 53.
Okay.
And then same thing with Eddie. Eddie
Nice.
then comes in there and does the same thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Nothing, it's not earth-shattering, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, 3 more questions. This one comes from Drew. I have 2 Twitter questions.
Okay.
One, who is a real candidate to be a part of the 99 club? Nelson seems obvious, but if Buckner can continue to develop to an elite level, he has potential. 2, I'm sorry.
Let's go there.
Let's start. You just want to start there?
Is 99, is that referencing Madden?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Okay.
I think Nelson got, 96? I think they both got around there.
It's got to be Nelson, right? Nelson. I don't get how Nelson's not 99. Is anyone 99 in the game? Aaron Donald better be 99.
Donald's 99. Devontae Adams is 99.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow. I would say Nelson and then potentially Buckner.
Okay. Second part, it seems like there's been a quarterback who is previously on the Colts who has had a couple of big injuries. When he tweaked his foot in training camp, he retired. Now we have Carson Wentz, who had a couple of season-ending injuries under his belt, and he tweaks his foot. All of the bad thoughts return. Is this the reality of the Colts that they might have to endure again, or should I just talk this out with my therapist? Yeah. All seriousness, thanks so much for what you do. Been a listener since day one.
Yes, true. Thank you for that. It means a lot. Wentz retiring, no. I shouldn't say no. I just probably jinxed myself, even though I don't believe in jinxes. I'd be surprised. Colts fans, 2 decades, very fortunate. This is life. This is life for 26 NFL fan bases. So here you are. Join the club.
This next one comes from Brian. With Carson Wentz injured, I'm looking forward to seeing what Eason can bring. Will this year show how great Frank Reich is? Eason was a drafted player by Ballard. They both signed off on the highly coveted draft pick. Will this prove Ballard is one of the best GMs in the NFL? Looking forward to the season. # build your own.
Obviously curious on that sign-off injury discussion-wise. You talked about that earlier. Not sure specifically where this question is kind of going. You guys have heard me say it. It's always a big year. I don't look at this and think Nelson's hurt, Wentz is hurt, the Colts get a pass. These aren't season-ending injuries. You lose sometimes pivotal players for stretches. This is where you're at, and we still evaluate things critically.
Second to last one from Logan. Do the Colts roll with Jacob Eason or sign a veteran quarterback now that Wentz is down indefinitely with the possible foot injury on the horizon? What does GM Kevin think?
I say yes. That is me. But again, that's August 4th, not April 4th. We will see how things play out over the next, really, three weeks.
All right, Kevin, this last one comes from Eric, and it's one that I've seen all across Twitter.
Okay.
What's the deal with Graham Park and Lucas Oil in terms of foot injuries when it comes to our quarterbacks? 4 straight quarterback with a lower body injury. You had Luck with a calf and ankle, Brissett with a knee, Rivers with a toe, and now Wentz with a foot.
Yeah. I got nothing for you there. Literally nothing. The turf looks great. I know Lucas Oil, there's been questions about that turf before and just some injuries, and they had a concert on the turf or something at one point, and the NFL didn't like it, or I don't even know all that. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. I'm not gonna act like it's not weird. The fact that these two dudes have played thousands of NFL snaps, and then this happens.
Mm-hmm. So
it's weird. I wish I could make sense of it a little bit more, but yeah, I got nothing for you on that. I got developmental anomaly and a high school injury. You just got to take it for what it's worth, I guess, and go from there.
Yeah, and like you said, Frank, with Pat yesterday, they're the same but kind of a little bit different.
Right.
I mean, they're having the same surgery, but the way the bones are going to grow back and the way that they were both kind of fractured happened differently. So I think it's just a freak accident.
Yeah, very freaky, to say the least. So thank you for everyone sending in those Twitter questions. If it works for you, Chris, I'm thinking maybe Monday. That's their next off day.
Yep.
After Thursday, if that works, we'll come back with another pod recapping kind of a busy weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning practices for the Colts. So like I said, YouTube, we've got video recaps every day from camp. Notebooks on line 107.5 The Fan, September 8th, the Wednesday. Mark that in your calendars for Beers with Bowen. Anything else, man?
No, enjoy your off day, man.
I will, and a shout out to Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning.
Yes,
going in the Hall
absolutely,
of Fame
absolutely.
This weekend. So great. Obviously, that's an understatement, and what those two have meant for the organization and this city as well. So be enjoying those speeches. Everybody have a great week, great weekend. Talk to you next week on Kevin's Corner. This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.